My name's David, and I guess I'm here to just let it all out and maybe get some clarity, or at least not feel so alone. For the longest time, I thought my life was, well, normal. If you had asked me about my marriage a few months ago, I would have said, it's great. Rachel and I have been together for almost 10 years now. We met in college, that whole love at first sight thing. It was always effortless, at least that's how it felt. People would look at us and think we had it all, successful careers, a nice house, and a seemingly unshakable bond. And honestly, I was proud of us. I never had any suspicions, never once doubted her. She was this ambitious, charismatic woman, someone who could walk into a room and instantly own it. I admired that about her, and I loved how she always seemed to be 2 steps ahead, in life and in our relationship. We made plans, shared dreams, and while we didn't have kids yet, it felt like we were on the right path. I thought we were in sync. Our weekends were usually spent with friends or at the pool, which had become kind of a weekend ritual for us. Rachel loved swimming. It was her way of blowing off steam from the stress of her job. So, every Saturday, we'd head to this upscale pool at a club we were members of. I'd lounge by the side with a drink, she'd do laps, and it was peaceful. That was until one day. The day when my life completely flipped. But, at the time, I had no idea what was coming. There were no warning signs, no red flags that would have made me question anything. Everything seemed perfect, or maybe it was perfectly hidden. And I guess that's the part that still haunts me. How could something so big, so soul-crushing, be happening right under my nose without me noticing? The day started like any other Saturday. We woke up late, grabbed some brunch at our favorite cafe, and then decided to hit the pool in the afternoon. I remember it so vividly because it was one of those perfect sunny days, the kind that makes you feel like nothing could ever go wrong. Rachel was in a particularly good mood. She laughed more than usual, kissed me on the cheek before we left, and even insisted on making a playlist for the drive. Everything felt light. Looking back, I realize now that I was completely oblivious to the tension she must have been hiding underneath that carefree smile. We arrived at the club, and as usual, I set up in one of those poolside cabanas while Rachel dove right in. She was an incredible swimmer, and watching her glide through the water always gave me this sense of pride. It was one of those small things, you know. Something that makes you love your partner even more. After about an hour of swimming, Rachel said she was going to hit the showers. I didn't think anything of it. It was normal. She always showered there before we headed home, and I usually stayed behind, scrolling through my phone or catching up on work emails. But this time was different. I got up from my chair to stretch and realized I left my sunglasses in the locker room. It wasn't a big deal, but I figured I'd grab them before Rachel finished showering so we could leave right after. I walked through the door, heading down the hall towards the locker rooms. And that's when I heard it, voices, low but distinct, coming from the showers. At first, I thought nothing of it. The pool was busy, and lots of people were coming in and out. But something about those voices made me pause. One of them sounded familiar, too familiar. It was Rachel. I stopped dead in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest for reasons I couldn't explain. My mind raced, trying to convince myself that I was overthinking. Maybe she bumped into someone she knew, maybe it was nothing. But curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer, as quietly as I could, until I was just outside the shower area. And then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of laughter, followed by Rachel's voice, soft but playful. Shoo, someone might hear us. At that moment, my blood ran cold. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, my mind refusing to process what my heart already knew. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. But I couldn't move, I was glued to that spot, just outside the shower area, listening. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. The laughter I heard wasn't the kind you have with a casual friend. It was too intimate, too familiar. And that single sentence, "shoo. Someone might hear us," echoed in my head, like a warning I wasn't ready to face. I felt sick. My body was screaming at me to turn around, to just leave and pretend I hadn't heard anything. But I couldn't. I had to know. So, I stepped forward, my legs feeling heavy and unsteady, until I was just close enough to peek around the corner. What I saw next hit me like a freight train. Through the steam of the showers, I saw them, Rachel, with her back turned to me, standing far too close to a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't just some random guy. He was touching her, his hands on her waist, pulling her toward him. They were in their own world, completely unaware that I was just a few feet away, watching everything. I couldn't breathe. It was like my mind disconnected from my body, and I was standing there, trapped in this nightmare I hadn't seen coming. I didn't know what to do, confront them, scream, walk away. Everything felt unreal, like it wasn't actually happening to me. I must have made some kind of noise, a shuffle, a sharp breath, because Rachel suddenly froze. She turned her head slightly, and then, she saw me. Her face went pale. I'll never forget that look. It was pure shock, like she'd been caught doing something she never thought she'd have to explain. For a second, everything seemed to stop. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. We just stood there, staring at each other across the steam-filled room, as the man beside her awkwardly stepped back, realizing they were busted. I snapped out of it first. My shock turned into something darker, something I hadn't felt before. Anger. Betrayal. Rage. What the hell is this, Rachel? I demanded, my voice shaking but loud enough to cut through the tension. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The guy beside her, some smug-looking douche in his late 30s, had the nerve to try and walk past me, like none of it mattered. Without thinking, I stepped in front of him, blocking his way. "You're not going anywhere," I said, my voice low and steady. I didn't even recognize myself at that moment. I wasn't going to let him just walk out of there like what I'd seen was no big deal. Rachel finally spoke, her voice a pathetic whisper. "David, I can explain." I laughed, but it wasn't from amusement. "Explain? Are you serious right now? What could you possibly say that would explain this?" I gestured between her and the guy, who was still standing there like an idiot. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. That was it. That's when something inside me snapped. "Find out what, Rachel?" "That you've been cheating some random guy behind my back." The silence that followed was suffocating. She didn't deny it. That was all the confirmation I needed. Without another word, I turned around and walked out. I didn't care if she followed. I didn't care about anything at that moment, except getting the hell out of that place. As I walked out into the parking lot, the weight of what just happened began to hit me in waves. My world had just imploded, and I didn't know how to make sense of it. I don't even remember how I got home that day. The drive was a blur, my mind running 1,000 miles an hour, replaying the scene at the pool over and over. I could still see them, Rachel and that guy in the shower, the way she looked at me when she realized she was caught. That blank stare of guilt. It felt like my heart was being torn apart, and the worst part was, I had no idea what to do next. When I pulled into our driveway, everything felt surreal. This was the same house Rachel and I had built our life together in. The place where we shared dinners, hosted friends, made plans for the future. And now? Now it felt like it wasn't even mine. Like the person I'd built that life with didn't exist anymore. The Rachel I thought I knew was a stranger. I walked inside, still numb, and dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. The silence of the house hit me hard. No one was there yet, Rachel hadn't followed me home, and I had no clue where she was. My mind raced with a million thoughts. Was she still with him? Was she thinking of what to say to me? Or was she figuring out a way to lie her way out of this? I didn't care. Not anymore. I headed straight for the liquor cabinet, poured myself a drink, and downed it without even tasting it. The anger inside me was building, turning into this cold, hard thing in my chest. I knew I needed to calm down before she came home. I couldn't lose it, no matter how badly I wanted to smash something. An hour passed. 2. Then, finally, I heard the front door creak open. Rachel walked in, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. She didn't look like the confident, powerful woman I'd known for so long. She looked small. Weak. Her eyes were red, probably from crying, but I couldn't find any sympathy in me. Not after what I'd seen. "David," she started, her voice shaky. "Can we talk?" "Talk?" I repeated, my voice cold. "About what, Rachel?" "About how you've been lying to me. About how you've been cheating some guy in the pool showers." She winced at my words, like the truth stung, but I didn't let up. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the pain I was going through. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said quietly, stepping closer but keeping her distance like she knew I was a ticking time bomb. "It just got out of control." I laughed bitterly. Out of control? How long, Rachel? How long have you been cheating on me? She looked away, biting her lip. That hesitation told me everything. "Answer me," I said, my voice rising. "How long?" "6 months," she whispered, barely able to meet my eyes. 6 months. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For half a year, she'd been lying to me, pretending everything was fine while she carried on behind my back. I felt like the biggest fool alive. I shook my head, trying to wrap my mind around it. "How could you do this to me? To us?" She started crying, the tears falling fast now, but I wasn't moved. I had too much anger, too much betrayal coursing through me to care. "I don't know," she sobbed. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened." "That's not an excuse, Rachel," I snapped. "You don't just accidentally cheat on someone for 6 months. She was shaking now, hands wringing together as if she was trying to figure out the right words to say, but nothing would change what had happened. Nothing would take away the image burned into my mind of her with that guy. "I love you," she choked out. "I never stopped loving you." I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my glass down on the counter, the sound shattering through the room. "You don't get to say that. Not after this. You don't get to pretend that this is something we can just fix." Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't care. I'd had enough. "You need to leave," I said, my voice hard and final. Her eyes widened in shock, like she didn't expect me to say that. "What?" I said, "Leave. Get out of my house." She took a step back, looking at me like she didn't recognize the person in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe this was the first time she realized just how badly she destroyed everything. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, her voice small. "I don't care," I shot back. "Go to him for all I care. But you're not staying here." Rachel stood there, stunned, as if she thought I would take it back. But I was done. Done with the lies, done with the betrayal, done with pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Without another word, she turned and walked out the door. And just like that, my life, the life I thought was perfect, was shattered. After Rachel left, the silence in the house was suffocating. It was strange, really, how fast everything unraveled. Just hours ago, I thought we were this happy couple, and now she was gone. I didn't know where she'd gone, and I didn't care. All I knew was that she wasn't coming back. At least not into my life. I tried to sleep that night, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Rachel, with that guy. The betrayal felt raw, like an open wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I replayed everything over and over, the memories from the last 6 months flooding my mind. The dinners, the laughs, the intimacy we shared, all of it now tainted with the knowledge that she'd been lying to me the whole time. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something wasn't adding up. 6 months. That's how long she said it had been going on. But I couldn't remember a single moment where she seemed distant or detached. If anything, she'd been normal. I didn't see any red flags, no signs of cheating. It was like she'd kept this other life perfectly hidden from me. It made me wonder, how good of a liar had she really been? The next morning, I woke up feeling drained. Physically, emotionally, just wrecked. But as much as I wanted to stay in bed, I knew I had to start picking up the pieces. I couldn't let her destroy me. So, I made coffee, sat down, and did the only thing I could think of. I went through her stuff. It wasn't out of some sick need for revenge, but I needed answers. I needed to know if there was more to this. So, I started with her phone bills. I knew the guy's number from the gym. He used to be one of our trainers before Rachel started going solo. It didn't take long to spot his number popping up over and over again. Late night calls, early morning texts. It made my stomach turn. Then I found something else. A second bank account. I had no idea she even had one. I knew we kept separate accounts for our own spending, but this was different. This wasn't some casual savings account or side stash. The transactions were shady. Large withdrawals, multiple charges at hotels, fancy dinners, things she never told me about. And they were frequent, dating back way longer than 6 months. That's when it hit me. This wasn't some fling. This was something much deeper, much more calculated than what she'd let on. Rachel hadn't just been lying to me for 6 months. She had been hiding her affair for over a year, maybe longer. And she didn't just lie. She built a whole other life behind my back. One that involved more than just that random guy from the gym. I wasn't ready for the full scope of it. My hands shook as I dug deeper. There were emails, encrypted messages, and receipts from vacations we didn't take together. Expensive gifts that never showed up at our house. Trips to places I had never even heard of. It was like discovering that the person I'd loved for all these years wasn't just unfaithful, she was someone I didn't even recognize anymore. The pieces started to fall into place. That's when I realized the worst part of it all, she had help. Her best friend, Megan, was in on it. I found a string of messages between them, going back almost a year. Megan, the same woman who had always been so kind, supportive, and, on our side, knew everything. She covered for Rachel. Helped her plan her meetups, even made excuses for her when she disappeared for days on end. I was furious. I couldn't believe the level of betrayal, not just from Rachel, but from someone I considered a friend. It was like my whole life had been this carefully crafted lie, and I was the last one to figure it out. But the craziest thing. As I stared at my laptop screen, absorbing the full extent of the betrayal, an idea crept into my mind. A part of me that I didn't even know existed. What if I wasn't the one left broken? What if this was the start of something new? As I sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage, I couldn't help but feel this strange pull toward Megan. I know, it sounds insane, she was Rachel's best friend, the one who had helped cover for her. I should have been furious with her, and trust me, I was. But there was something else too, something I couldn't quite shake. Megan had always been around. She and Rachel were practically inseparable, like sisters. We'd all hung out together, dinners, parties, trips. Megan and I had always gotten along well, maybe a little too well at times, but I never thought much of it. She was just there, always in the background, always supportive. But now it felt different. The betrayal I'd felt toward Rachel was clear as day, but with Megan, it was more complicated. Yeah, she'd helped Rachel lie, but the texts between them, they didn't paint Megan as some cold, calculating accomplice. If anything, she sounded like she'd been trying to stop Rachel at times. I don't think you should do this, Rachel. You're going to hurt him. Are you sure this is worth it? He doesn't deserve this. I stared at those messages for a long time, feeling this strange mix of emotions. Megan wasn't innocent, but she wasn't exactly on Rachel's side either. She'd tried, in her own way, to steer Rachel back. Maybe it wasn't enough, but it was something. And honestly, it made me curious. A few days passed. Rachel didn't try to come back, though I got a few desperate texts and calls from her. I ignored them. There was no going back for me. I couldn't even imagine looking her in the eye again, let alone forgiving her. But Megan? That was a different story. I decided to call her. Part of me wanted to know why she'd gone along with Rachel's lies, but another part just wanted someone to talk to, someone who knew the situation. When she picked up, her voice was cautious, as if she knew exactly why I was calling. David, she said softly. Yeah, it's me, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. There was a pause. I figured. I asked her to come over. It was weird, I know, but I didn't want to do this over the phone. I needed to see her, face to face, to understand why she'd let this happen. An hour later, Megan showed up at my door. She looked nervous, almost as if she'd been expecting a full-on confrontation. To be fair, I didn't know what I was expecting either. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us thick with tension. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. She just looked at me with those wide, anxious eyes, waiting for me to start. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked, my voice low. Why did you help her? Megan sighed, running her hands through her hair. I didn't help her like you think, David. I tried to stop her, but Rachel, she's not easy to talk out of something once she's made up her mind. I didn't agree with what she was doing, but I didn't want to lose her as a friend either. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it all. So, you just let her cheat on me? For over a year. She winced at my words. It wasn't that simple. Trust me, I told her to stop. I begged her to end it. But Rachel, she's a master at convincing people, and honestly, part of me was scared of what she'd do if I didn't back her up. I know that's not an excuse, but I didn't know what else to do. The more she talked, the more I could see the guilt on her face. She wasn't just saying what I wanted to hear. She was torn up inside, probably hating herself for playing a part in this disaster. I'm sorry, David, she said, her voice cracking. I really am. I should have told you. I should have done something. Her eyes were filled with tears now, and for a moment, I felt the anger inside me soften. Maybe it was the loneliness, maybe it was the raw emotion in her voice, but I didn't hate her. Not like I hated Rachel. Why didn't you? I asked, quieter this time. Megan hesitated, her eyes searching mine for a moment before she answered. Because I didn't want to hurt you. I knew what this would do to you, and I didn't want to be the one to break your heart. And just like that, something clicked. This wasn't just about Rachel anymore. Megan had been caught in the middle of something she couldn't control, and maybe, just maybe, there was more to her reasons than she was letting on. We sat there in silence for a while, the tension easing just a little. I could feel something shifting between us, something I hadn't expected. Megan wasn't just Rachel's accomplice, she was her own person, and for the first time, I was starting to see her differently. I don't know what happens next, I said, my voice steady but filled with uncertainty. Megan nodded, her eyes softening. Neither do I. But I'm here, David. I'm here if you need someone. And in that moment, I realized I didn't feel so alone anymore. After Megan left that evening, I felt conflicted. It was strange. My entire world had been flipped upside down, and yet, talking to her had given me a sense of clarity. For the first time since I'd found out about Rachel's betrayal, I didn't feel entirely alone. But at the same time, something about the conversation stuck with me in ways I wasn't ready to admit. Over the next few days, Megan and I kept in touch. It started with simple texts, checking in, asking how I was holding up, offering support. But as time went on, those conversations grew longer, deeper. There was something about talking to her that felt easy, natural. We'd both been through hell, both in different ways, but it was almost like we understood each other without having to say much. Then, one evening, about a week after our first talk, Megan called. She sounded upset. "David, can I come over? I just need someone to talk to." I hesitated. Part of me knew that seeing her again so soon was risky, but another part, the part that had been lonely for so long, couldn't say no. "Of course," I said, my voice soft. "Come over whenever you want." An hour later, she was at my door again, this time with tears in her eyes. Before I could even ask what was wrong, she stepped inside and hugged me. I wasn't expecting it, but I didn't pull away either. The warmth of her body against mine was comforting in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. It caught me off guard, how natural it felt to hold her. We sat down on the couch, and Megan began telling me about how things had been falling apart in her own life. Her job had become unbearable, her relationship strained, and Rachel, well, that friendship was as good as over. "She blames me, Megan said quietly, wiping away tears. "Rachel thinks I betrayed her by even talking to you. It's like she doesn't realize that she's the one who destroyed everything." I listened, feeling a surge of anger toward Rachel. Even after everything she'd done, she still had the nerve to turn on Megan, the one person who tried to be there for her. It just showed how deep her selfishness ran. Megan leaned her head back on the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I'm losing everything because of her," she whispered. "You're not losing everything," I said, my voice steady. "You still have me." She looked at me then, her eyes filled with emotion, and for a moment, the air between us shifted. It was subtle, but I could feel it, the weight of everything we'd been through, the shared pain, the quiet understanding that neither of us had asked for this but somehow we'd ended up here. Without thinking, I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. In fact, she squeezed my hand in return, her fingers soft but trembling slightly. "David," she whispered, her voice uncertain, almost like she was asking a question neither of us had the answer to. I didn't know what came over me, but before I could stop myself, I leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, like we both weren't sure if this was something we should be doing. But then, something clicked. The kiss deepened, and all the emotions I'd been holding inside, the anger, the loneliness, the betrayal, poured into that moment. Megan kissed me back, her hands sliding up to my shoulders, pulling me closer. It wasn't just about attraction or desire. It was about two broken people finding something, anything, that made them feel whole again, even if just for a moment. But as quickly as it started, reality came crashing down. I pulled back, breathless, my heart pounding in my chest. Megan's eyes were wide, her lips parted, and I could tell she was just as shocked as I was. I'm sorry," I stammered, suddenly feeling the weight of what we'd just done. "I didn't mean to." Megan shook her head, her expression soft. "No. Don't apologize. I wanted it too." We sat there in silence for a long moment, neither of us sure where to go from here. What had just happened was more than either of us had planned, but it didn't feel wrong. It felt like something that had been building for a while, something inevitable. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into dangerous territory. Rachel's betrayal was still fresh, and now this new connection with Megan. It felt like crossing a line I wasn't ready for. "I don't know what happens next," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Megan gave me a small, sad smile. Neither do I. But I don't regret it. Neither did I. But as I lay awake that night, after Megan had gone home, the guilt started creeping in. Not for kissing Megan, I didn't regret that, but for what it meant. Rachel was gone from my life, sure, but this wasn't just about her. It was about me and what I was ready to face. And the truth was, I didn't know if I was ready for anything anymore. Yet, there was no denying it. Something had changed between Megan and me. Something we couldn't undo. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to. The next morning, I woke up with my mind racing, replaying everything that had happened with Megan. I couldn't stop thinking about it, the kiss, the feelings it stirred up, the confusion that followed. Part of me felt like I'd crossed a line, but another part, it felt right. I couldn't deny that. But as the day dragged on, reality set in. The situation was messy, and I knew it. Rachel's betrayal was still fresh, the wounds raw, and here I was, already getting tangled up in something new with her best friend. I wasn't sure what this was, if it was just the result of two broken people seeking comfort, or if there was something deeper growing between us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, it wasn't going to be simple. I tried to distract myself with work, throwing myself into projects, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Megan. A part of me wanted to reach out, to see how she was feeling after last night. Did she regret it? Did she want to talk about what happened? I couldn't tell, but the pull to see her again was strong. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and texted her. "Hey. You doing okay?" A few minutes passed before my phone buzzed with her reply. "Yeah, I'm okay. Just thinking a lot about last night." "Me too," I typed back, my fingers hesitating over the keys. "Do you regret it?" There was a longer pause this time, and my stomach twisted as I waited for her response. "No, I don't. But I think we need to talk about it. In person." I agreed, and a few hours later, Megan was standing in front of me again, just like the night before. Only this time, the air between us was thick with unspoken tension, like we both knew this conversation would change everything. We sat down on the couch, the same place where everything had happened. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Megan was the first to break the silence. "David, I didn't plan for this. I didn't expect us to kiss, or for things to get complicated between us. But I can't pretend like it didn't mean something." Her voice was soft but steady, her eyes searching mine for some kind of reassurance. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "It meant something to me too," I admitted. "But Megan, we both know this is complicated. I just found out my wife was cheating on me, with your help," I added, not as an accusation, but as a reminder of the mess we were in. "And now, this." She sighed, rubbing her hands together nervously. "I know. It's all messed up. But I don't think what's happening between us is just because of Rachel. I don't regret what happened last night. I care about you, David. I always have." Her words hung in the air, and I felt something shift inside me. Megan wasn't just a rebound or a distraction. She was someone I had known for years, someone who had been part of my life for as long as Rachel had. And now, I was starting to see her in a way I hadn't before. "Megan, I don't know if I'm ready for this," I said honestly. "Everything's still so raw. I'm angry, I'm hurt, and I don't want to make decisions out of that pain." She nodded, her expression softening. "I get it. I do. And I don't want to rush into anything either. But I can't pretend like this connection between us doesn't exist. I've been thinking about it for a while, even before all of this happened. I just didn't think, well, that it could ever happen." I was quiet for a moment, taking in her words. She wasn't asking for an answer right now, and that was a relief. But the truth was, I couldn't deny that something between us had shifted. That kiss wasn't just about comfort, it was about something deeper, something I wasn't sure I was ready to confront yet. "I don't know where this is going, Megan," I said softly, meeting her gaze. "But I don't want to lose you, either. I don't know what this means for us, or how to navigate it. But I do know that I care about you." Megan's eyes softened, and she reached for my hand, just like she had the night before. "We can take it slow, David. I'm not asking for anything more than that. Just, let's figure it out, together." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't a solution to everything, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be easy. But Megan was offering me something I hadn't expected, a chance to start healing, even if it was messy, even if it was complicated. And maybe, just maybe, we could make something out of the chaos. Something real. "Okay," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "We'll figure it out." Megan smiled, and in that moment, the weight of everything that had happened, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the confusion, felt a little lighter. There was still a long way to go, but for the first time since discovering Rachel's betrayal, I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel alone. We were stepping into something uncertain, something we hadn't planned for. But we were stepping into it together. And that was a start. After that conversation, things with Megan shifted in a way neither of us could fully explain. We didn't rush into anything, we both agreed to take things slow, but the connection between us was undeniable. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other often, always under the guise of just talking, but we both knew there was more simmering beneath the surface. The strange part was how easy it felt to be around her. The tension was still there, sure, but so was the comfort. We had years of history between us, and that history gave us something solid to stand on, even if the ground beneath our feet was shaky. I'd catch myself staring at her, wondering how I hadn't seen it before, the way she looked at me, the quiet moments we shared. There was an energy between us now that hadn't existed before, something electric. But I was still haunted by Rachel. Every time I started to feel good, to feel like I could move forward with Megan, Rachel would find a way to creep back into my life. Whether it was through random text messages, phone calls, or even things around the house that reminded me of her, she was everywhere. She hadn't reached out in person since I kicked her out, but her presence still lingered, like a shadow I couldn't shake. And then, one night, it all came crashing down. I had invited Megan over for dinner. Nothing fancy, just a quiet evening to talk, unwind, and see where things might go. It was the first time we'd actually done something that felt like, well, more than friendship. I had cooked, set the table, even put on some music. I didn't want to make it a big deal, but deep down, I knew it was. It felt like the beginning of something new, something we were both tiptoeing toward. Megan arrived, and things started off light. We laughed, talked about anything but Rachel or the past, just enjoyed each other's company. For the first time in weeks, I felt normal, like the weight of everything wasn't crushing me. But just as we were finishing dinner, my phone buzzed on the table. At first, I ignored it. I wasn't going to let anything ruin the moment. But then it buzzed again. And again. Megan noticed my hesitation. "You can get that, if you need to," she said softly, her eyes filled with understanding. I grabbed my phone, already dreading what I might see. Sure enough, it was Rachel. Text after text, like she was having some kind of meltdown. I sighed, my fingers hovering over the screen. I didn't want to deal with her, not now. But then one text caught my eye. "I'm coming over. We need to talk." My stomach twisted. She was coming here. Now. Of all times. Megan noticed the change in my expression. "What is it?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "It's Rachel. She says she's coming over." Megan's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't seem surprised. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked, her voice calm, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "No," I said, shaking my head. "You don't have to go anywhere. This is my house, and I'm done letting Rachel control everything." Megan nodded, but I could tell she was uneasy. We both were. The last thing either of us needed was a confrontation with Rachel, especially when things between Megan and me were still so new and fragile. Half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew was about to happen. Megan sat quietly on the couch, watching me as I walked to the door and opened it. There she was. Rachel. She looked different, disheveled, tired, like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red, and she looked at me with a mix of desperation and regret. "David," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me to keep her away from Megan. "What do you want, Rachel?" I need to explain," she said, wringing her hands together. "I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. But I've been thinking, and I want to fix it." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. She wanted to fix it? After all this? "Rachel, there's nothing left to fix." Tears welled up in her eyes. "David, please. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I don't want to give up on us. We were good together." "No, we weren't," I snapped, my patience running thin. "You threw everything away. You lied to me for over a year, Rachel. And now you expect me to just forget that?" She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I was done pretending there was anything salvageable between us. "I've been a mess without you," she continued, her voice breaking. "I can't sleep, I can't eat. I made a mistake, David, but I still love you. Don't you still love me?" Her words hit me hard, not because I believed her, but because I realized something in that moment: I didn't love her anymore. Not in the way I used to. The betrayal had shattered that part of me, and now, seeing her like this, I felt nothing but anger and a strange sense of relief. I said quietly, the truth sinking in as I spoke it. "I don't love you anymore." The look on her face was one of pure devastation, and for a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. But it passed as quickly as it came. Rachel wiped at her eyes, her voice trembling. I didn't think it was really over." "It is," I said firmly. "It's been over for a while now, Rachel. You made your choice." Just then, the door behind me opened slightly, and Megan stepped out onto the porch. Rachel's eyes widened when she saw her, and I could see the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Rachel's voice was filled with disbelief, her gaze shifting between Megan and me. "You're with her? You're replacing me with my best friend?" I didn't flinch. "Megan is the only person who's been honest with me throughout this entire mess. I'm not replacing anyone. You're the one who destroyed this, Rachel. Not me." Rachel's expression turned cold, her tears replaced by fury. "This is how you're going to play it? After everything?" "I'm not playing anything," I said calmly. "It's over, Rachel. You need to accept that." She stared at me, her face twisted in a mix of rage and hurt. For a moment, I thought she might lash out, say something cruel, but instead, she just shook her head, backing away. "You'll regret this," she said bitterly. "You'll both regret this." Without another word, she turned and stormed off into the night. I stood there for a moment, the weight of everything pressing down on me, but Megan's presence beside me kept me grounded. When I turned to look at her, she smiled, a soft, understanding smile that made the chaos of the night feel a little less overwhelming. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded, though the truth was, I didn't know how I felt. Relieved, maybe. Sad, definitely. But I was sure of one thing: Rachel was gone, and Megan was still here. And somehow, despite everything, that felt like the start of something real. A year passed, and it felt like I had lived through a lifetime of changes. Life with Megan had fallen into place more naturally than I ever expected. What started out as a connection built in the ashes of betrayal had grown into something deeper, something real. We didn't rush into anything, but over time, our relationship became stronger than either of us could have imagined. We moved in together after a few months of dating. It felt right, like we were finally stepping out of the shadow of Rachel's betrayal and carving out a future that was ours, untangled from the mess of the past. It wasn't always easy, there were moments of doubt, moments where the past would creep in, but Megan was patient. We built something solid, something that felt like home. And then, one day, everything changed again. Megan came home from work with this look on her face. I could tell something was on her mind, but I didn't push her. We'd learned to give each other space when we needed it, to talk when we were ready. But this time, she didn't wait long. "I have something to tell you," she said quietly, sitting down beside me on the couch. My heart skipped a beat. There was something in her tone, something serious. I turned to face her, searching her eyes for a clue. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her hand slipping into mine. "David. I'm pregnant." For a moment, the world stood still. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. Pregnant. We were going to have a child. A wave of emotions washed over me, joy, disbelief, excitement, fear. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, stunned, my mind racing with thoughts of what our future would look like now. Are you happy?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Happy didn't even begin to cover it. I felt something swell in my chest, something pure and overwhelming. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly as the reality of it hit me. "I'm more than happy, Megan. I'm over the moon." She laughed through her tears, relief washing over her face. We sat there, holding each other, imagining the life we were about to create together. A life filled with love, laughter, and the kind of family we both deserved. The next few months were a whirlwind of preparations. We set up the nursery, went to doctor's appointments, and told our families. Megan was glowing, and I had never felt more grounded, more certain that this was where I was meant to be. But in the background, Rachel still lingered like a ghost. I hadn't heard much from her after that night when she stormed off, furious about Megan and me. She had tried to stir up trouble, calling friends and family, telling them how I had betrayed her by getting with Megan. But the truth was on our side. Everyone knew Rachel had been the one to destroy our marriage, and most people stopped listening to her complaints. Still, she hadn't disappeared entirely. Word got back to me occasionally, she was angry, bitter, unable to move on. She had tried dating, but nothing seemed to stick. She bounced around jobs, moved to a smaller apartment, and, from what I heard, spent most of her time blaming everyone else for her problems. And then, about 2 weeks before the baby was due, I ran into her. It was a random Tuesday, and I was out running errands, picking up the last few things we needed before the baby came. I was leaving the store, arms full of baby clothes, when I saw her. Rachel. She was standing by her car, dressed up as usual, high heels, designer clothes, the kind of outfit she always wore when she was trying to show the world how put together she was. But there was something off about her. She looked tired, like life had worn her down in a way I hadn't seen before. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. It was awkward, seeing her like this, after everything that had happened. Finally, she broke the silence. "So, you're really doing it," she said, her voice sharp. "You're building a whole new life with her. With Megan." I didn't respond right away. I could hear the bitterness in her voice, the anger that still simmered under the surface. She was holding on to the past, to the idea that I'd somehow wronged her by moving on. "I'm happy," I said simply, my voice calm. "We're having a baby." She flinched at the word, her expression hardening. A baby? With my best friend? You're unbelievable, David. After everything, you just moved on like I meant nothing to you. I sighed, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. Rachel, you're the one who threw us away. You made your choices. I'm not going to apologize for finding happiness. She looked at me like she didn't believe a word I was saying. You replaced me, she spat, her eyes narrowing. With her. I shook my head, my heart heavy with the truth she still couldn't see. I didn't replace you, Rachel. You left me with nothing when you cheated. You were the one who destroyed us. I'm just moving forward. Her face twisted with anger, but there was something else there too. A flicker of regret, of realization that she had lost everything. She was standing there, alone, still dressed up like she was trying to prove something to the world, but deep down, I could see that she had nothing. She opened her mouth to say something, but then she stopped. For a moment, it looked like she might cry, but she quickly swallowed it down, turning her back to me. Good luck, she muttered, her voice thick with bitterness. You'll need it. And with that, she got into her car and drove away. I stood there for a long time, watching her disappear, feeling a strange mix of emotions. It wasn't triumph or satisfaction that I felt, just closure. Rachel had nothing now. She was alone, angry, still trying to dress up the ruins of her life, while I was on the verge of something beautiful. When I got home that night, Megan was waiting for me, her belly round and glowing, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. I kissed her, knowing without a doubt that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Rachel was a chapter of my life that had closed for good. And now, I was ready for the next one, with Megan, with our child, and with a future that no longer had any shadows from the past. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had everything I needed.